Oral sex is a really big deal. Everywhere you turn, Christians are asking questions about oral sex. But what is oral sex? Just like anal sex, oral sex simply means when the tongue in your mouth, or your mouth, which is oral, everything oral is from here, oral cavity, oral this, oral has to do with mouth, right? Oral sex means when your mouth and the things in your mouth begin to play the role of your genitalia, of your male and female organs. I don't know any other better way to explain oral sex than that. Sex is sex, isn't it? And we've already established that sex is when the male organ meets with the female organ, the ones that God created. Not the ones that doctors created, the ones that God created. And now when you say anal sex, we described it as when the male organ is now going to where it's not supposed to go to, the anus. Oral is when the mouth begins to do the job that the stuff in between your legs are supposed to be doing. Simple and short. So for a man, your tongue is going to now become like your male organ, your genitalia. And for a woman, your mouth becomes your private part, right? That's when you know you're performing oral sex. Now, people have been asking this question. Is oral sex really wrong? On what basis, first of all, did we establish that certain sexual exercises or activities are actually against God, or that they are perverted, or that they are perversions, or that they are sinful? On what basis do we determine when a sexual activity or sexual position is actually sinful, or when it is tilting towards disobedience to God's own established statutes? On what basis do we do that? We do that on the basis of the fact that when it is not going where it is supposed to go, when something that is meant for going this way is now meant to go that way, it simply means that we are now perverting sex. That's what perversion is all about. When we start using the things God created for sex for other purposes, for other uses, then you are perverting sex. Your tongue was not meant to be your male organ. Your mouth was not meant to do the work of your female genitalia, your female organ. They were not meant to do that job. Now, there is nowhere in the Bible that oral sex is mentioned. But there are some verses in the Songs of Solomon. You know, if you know about Songs of Solomon, it's a very steamy, sexually sensitive chapter of the Bible, right? I mean, it's just meant for adults. I'm telling you the truth, especially for married people. Now, in Songs of Solomon, we have two verses that have veiled references to oral sex. Veiled references to oral sex. And I'm going to read them and tell you what I think about them. All right? The first one is Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 3. It says, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. In his shade I took great delight and sat down, and his fruits was sweet to my taste. His fruits. So a lot of people have interpreted this that she's referring to his shade as in between his legs. And the fruit that she's talking about are supposed to be his testicles. So she just enjoyed the taste, meaning that she probably, got her mouth into the testicles, right? Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about it, but let's go to the second one. The second one is Song of Solomon chapter 4, verse 16. It said, awake north wind, and come south wind, blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits. That's the woman. So the garden is now the woman's own genitalia. So let's go to the first one. She said that like an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. In his shade I took great delight and sat down. and his fruit was sweet to my taste. Let's say she actually went ahead and probably kissed or did whatever to his testicles. What I see here is sexual stimulation. If you look at the woman also talking about her own, she said, blow on my garden that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Its fragrance, and you know what it means when you say fragrance, talking about a woman's genitalia, right? So this is why people say this is the woman's own private part they're talking about. His fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and test its choice fruits. So what you are looking at here, from my conclusion, is sexual stimulation. So this is one line that we have not been able to draw ever since we started talking about oral sex. People always mix the two of them together. That line we need to draw is that there are two different things involving oral here. You can have an oral sex, you can also have an oral stimulation. Now, what I believe, and I will tell you under the unction of the Holy Spirit, and I will say that expressly today, is that oral stimulation is not sin and is not against anything that is godly. But oral sex is against everything that is godly. And the problem here is, and I'm going to try to make sure that that problem is cleaned out. Let's explain and understand properly what is oral stimulation and what is oral sex in itself. Because we're dealing with oral sex here. We're not dealing with oral stimulation. Now, oral stimulation begins not from down there, it begins from top. For instance, you want to go into foreplay, you want to have sex with your woman that you're married to, and you want to go into foreplay. Sometimes you see some men will start kissing the ear. You might start kissing the nostrils. You might kiss even the eyes. You might kiss the back of the neck or kiss anywhere you want to kiss. The whole kiss, even go straight to the breast. If you go to Song of Solomon, you see where he's talking about how that the breast is this to the man, to my beloved, and blah, blah, blah. So you're kissing all of these places. That is called oral stimulation. And if it is not a sin for you to kiss the ear and kiss whatever you want to kiss out there and just use your tongue or whatever to stimulate your woman, probably to turn her on, if it is not a sin to do that, it's also not a sin to do it down there. But what is the difference? Now, for people who are married, this is why I said initially, I don't want anybody under 18 watching this video. But for people who are married, okay, you know there is a part of a woman down there that is meant for stimulation. If your tongue goes to stimulate it, you have committed no sin at all. If the woman decides to use hers to stimulate you down there, she has committed absolutely no sin. But guess what? When you go beyond tickling and stimulating and all of that and trying to turn on, and then you start using your tongue to play the role of the penis as a man, or the woman now decides to use her mouth to play the role of her vagina, where the man is now thrusting as if he's having sex, that's when you know you are having actual sexual intercourse. And that's what is called oral sex. At that point, you know what you're doing? You are indulging in a satanic worship or sacrifice or ritual. So you see, when I was sharing this revelation with somebody, the person said to me, what if people now want to go and do this one and they always enter into that place? And I said, that's a very valid question. But the truth of the matter is that anybody who goes to do this one and decides to enter and do the other one, you are going to take responsibility. But as an educator, as a teacher, as somebody who has been asked by God or appointed by God to teach and speak the truth, I can only lay the truth bare before you. You can then choose what you do with the truth. I cannot say because people are going to abuse this and not tell the truth, that there is a mighty difference between sexual stimulation orally and then oral sex itself. So we have two things here you must pay attention to. There is oral stimulation and there is oral sex. Oral sex is when the actual activity of sexual intercourse is taking place, but you are using your mouth or the things in your mouth to carry it out. Oral stimulation is when you are using your mouth or your tongue or whatever to stimulate each other down below. Stimulation only, not thrusting for sex. I poured over so many materials. As I was researching, all I saw was here or there, here or there. Is it that this person is saying it is good for Christianity? This one said it is not. Is it the people who agree or who disagree? Nobody had been able to talk about that gray area, that tiny little line there that we just brought out right now, which is oral stimulation. So when you're stimulating each other, it's the same thing as when you're stimulating through the ear or the nostrils or the navel or wherever you want to stimulate orally. You can also stimulate down there orally. But do not indulge or engage in oral sex itself. You must have control and not do that. And if you think that going there is going to tempt you into getting involved in actual oral sex, then avoid it completely. Another thing you need to do as well, and you have to be aware of this, is if your partner in a properly constituted marriage, especially a Christian marriage, if your partner feels uncomfortable, please be very mindful of this. You know, when we get down to sex magic, I pray the Lord will help me to remember this, to tell you that this form of worship that we generate when we indulge in sexual intercourse, there has to be a perfect agreement. It's like when you're praying with someone and there's no agreement. The Bible says, if two of you shall agree as touching anything, it shall be done for you by my Father in heaven. In sex, you must have agreement with your partner. When you don't have agreement, you just carry the woman on the bed and you just slap her, you enjoy yourself, you come, you disappear. That is not intercourse. You are just a complete rapist if you're a man. Sex is meant to be enjoyed by the two. And when two of you have a proper spiritual connection, so tight, and an agreement, and you indulge in it, it's a huge amount of worship flavor you are sending to heaven, to God. And for every act of worship, there's a blessing that comes with it. When we get to sex magic, I will show you how that people use this same emotional energy to actually make requests and get whatever they want. The devil is taking something that God gave to us and is using it against us and for his own good. And we are running away from the thing. We all need to wake up right now. So please, I know I've said it over and over again, but let me cap it again. Oral stimulation is not a sin. There's nothing wrong with it, okay? But oral sex itself, using your tongue and your mouth to play the role of your male genitalia and your female genitalia as in actual sexual intercourse, that is a bloody sin against God. Why? Because the bedrock of sexual disobedience and perversion is when the things that are meant to go one way are now being used to go a different way, or being used for a different purpose than the purpose they were meant for. And that is the truth. And I hope that this is established in your minds.